All right, if you want to make your way back to your seat. Sorry. So do it. Walk out. Well, good morning again. Melissa and I don't lead music that often, but I feel like on these mornings that it's a high dose of me. So sorry that you get a high dose of me this morning. I hope you had a good Thanksgiving. We did. We were down in San Diego with Melissa's folks, and Mark and Christina came down. We had a really good time, although Ellie's car had some problems yesterday morning, and so we didn't get out till late, so we didn't get home till late. So I'm feeling a little sluggish this morning. If I start to slur my words, or if I just completely fall down up here, you guys will know it's because I'm a little tired. But we are going to continue this morning with this Outlining the Story series. As I've talked about every week, we're trying to go with like a broad brush overview of the Old Testament, like the main theme of what God is trying to communicate, or themes that God's trying to communicate through the Old Testament. I compared it a while ago to Tom the Turkey here, right? You got the full Tom the Turkey over here, all colored and stuff. We're going to do more of the outline of Tom the Turkey, so you won't get the full dose of it. I thought, based on this being Thanksgiving week, what might be a little more appropriate is like you've got the full turkey here, right? That looks delicious, and you want to just devour it, and we all devoured a lot of that, I think, this week. But what we're going to do is we're going to do something more like this. So, sorry, it's not as appetizing, you don't get the full effect, but hopefully you'll get a decent amount of good food as we go through the Old Testament. We started with these first principles, right? Back at the beginning of Genesis, that God is the creator of everything, and we have to start there, right? Because everything that we know, everything that exists, was created by Him and for Him, and that includes us. We were created by Him, and He has a purpose for us, and that purpose was very clear from the beginning, which was we were to image Him, right? Reflect Him, be a picture of what God's character is like. We blew that pretty quickly, right? And we, kind of hoped maybe after that first generation blew it, Adam and Eve, that maybe the next generation, would fix things. They don't. The generations after that don't fix it. You have 1,700 years of history in which humans do not fix things. In fact, things get far, far, far worse. So bad that God ends up just wiping them off the planet because every intention of their heart was evil only all the time. It was only evil all the time. And so He wipes them off the face of the planet and just leaves Noah and his family kind of starting over. We think, okay, once the bad people are gone, now we're really going to fix things. We're going to get things right. And we see very quickly we don't get things right. That we have Noah's son Ham almost immediately having some issues. We see humanity quickly being disobedient to God, not doing what He asked them to do, trying to bring glory to themselves instead of bringing glory to their Creator, which was their purpose. So God begins to reveal His plan of salvation and redemption for humanity through this one guy, Abraham. Right? And we see Him working in Abraham's life. We see Abraham responding with faith, trusting Yahweh, and that Yahweh in return took this very unrighteous guy and considered him righteous because of his faith. And that kind of set a new tone for humanity, a new opportunity for humanity to actually be righteous, because we are not righteous, that we can now be credited righteousness, imputed righteousness, because of this faith that we have, this faith relationship, this trusting relationship we have with God. So He starts with Abraham, And he gives Abraham this covenant, this contract, right? We've been talking a lot about contract the last couple of weeks. And this contract is a binding agreement between Abraham and Yahweh. And then that binding agreement gets passed down to his son Jacob, and then his son Isaac, and then Isaac's son Jacob. And then Jacob's sons, and then Jacob's sons' sons, and sons' sons, and sons, and on and on and on. The children of Abraham, the descendants of Abraham, all enter into this agreement with Yahweh. And we saw last week that as the people are coming out of Egypt, Yahweh really lays down a lot of specifics about the contract. Early on, it was kind of vague. It was a real basic contract. But as they come out of Egypt, and there's this massive people, and they're headed into this new land, God gives them lots of specifics on this contract and lots of detail to this contract because they need to now govern themselves. And so he's like, let me show you how to govern yourselves rightly, be righteous, and how to do justice to one another. When you're in this land. And so he gives lots and lots of detail. In fact, we have lots of Exodus, most of Deuteronomy, most of Leviticus and Numbers and Deuteronomy, all full of these details of this contract. And we saw very early Israel saying the right things. See, I'm tired. I can't think straight. Israel saying the right things. Right from the beginning, they say, we will do whatever you ask us to do. What we're going to look at this week is actually what their actions showed as opposed to what their words were. So let me pray for us. Lord, we are so thankful to be together. Even though I am a little tired this morning, we are thankful to be together and being able to look over your word, look into your word. Again, just ask that you would teach us what you want to teach us, that you know each one of us and where we're at and what we need to understand and take away today. Help us not to be forgetful hearers, those who just come to listen to your word being taught, but not living it out. May it be something that changes our thinking, changes our actions, changes the way we view you and view ourselves. May you work that change in our hearts this morning. Pray this all in your name. Amen. So, Yahweh is expanding and clarifying this contract. And last week I kind of focused on what Yahweh was doing, right? Him giving these instructions. I want to look at what the people do here. Rewind a little bit and take a look at what the people do. This is right after the Red Sea, okay? You got to picture, they were just in Egypt. They had just had Yahweh coming through in all these amazing ways in Egypt, that he was coming through time after time after time. They saw these amazing, miraculous signs, these 10 signs that were given to Egypt that were from Yahweh, and they're like, man, Yahweh's awesome, right? He's doing all this amazing stuff. He just split the Red Sea. We just walked across it. The Red Sea closed, and you have all these dead soldiers that washed up on the beach, and they're looking at these soldiers, and they're like, man, Yahweh's awesome, right? This is right after that. Look at this. Look at verse 1. Then they set out from Elim, and all the congregation of the sons of Israel came to the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after their departure from the land of Egypt. This is a month and a half after they had left Egypt, seeing all these miraculous, never seen before signs on the earth, these wonders. They had been freed from one of the most powerful nations on the planet. And this is what happens in verse 2. But the whole congregation of the sons of Israel grumbled against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. The sons of Israel said to them, if only we had died by Yahweh's hand in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the pots of meat, when we ate bread until we were full, for you have brought us out into the wilderness to kill this entire assembly with hunger. Didn't Yahweh just provide for them over and over and over and over and over and over and over again? They're out in the middle of the wilderness, and they're like, we're hungry. What is wrong with them? Look at verse 4. Then Yahweh said to Moses, behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a day's portion every day, so that I may test them, whether or not they will walk in my instruction. This is not how I would have responded. If I had the power to smite them, I would have smote them in that moment, right? Like, you guys are annoying. Are you kidding me? Like, you're grumbling right after I just provided so much for you. Do you not trust me? But he provides. He says, you know what? I'm going to rain down bread from heaven. And bread is really food. The word is food there. I'll rain down food from heaven for you. And the people will gather 1 day's worth of food. Now, this is important. He's doing this on purpose. He's giving them 1 day's worth of food because it requires something of them. Can we guess what it requires? Trust. Faith, right? Do you trust me? Now, he's testing them, not testing them like pass or fail. We've talked about that. But he's trying to reveal for them their own lack of trust. We'll see the lack of trust here in a second. Do you trust me that I will provide for you every day? Now, we've got to understand there's some gravity to this, okay? Because if you think about it, think about your family. Maybe when you were younger and had your family at home, like think about looking into the faces of your 8-year-old son and your 6-year-old daughter. And they are hungry. They need to eat, right? And you're supposed to provide for them, right? And you go out, and if there's no food out the next day, like today I can go out and there's food, right? But if the next day I go out and there's no food, what's going to happen to my kids? They're going to starve. They're going to be hungry. If that goes on for too many days, they're going to starve and be dead, right? So the stakes are high here. No question the stakes are high. But Yahweh's saying, hey, are you going to trust me when the stakes are high? Look at all that I've done for you. Are you going to trust me that I'm going to continue to do what I've told you to do? What I told you I would do, the contract that we have, that I will hold up my end of the contract, which I have always done. I did it with Abraham. I did it with Isaac. I did it with Jacob. I did it with all of the descendants and up to this point. I'm going to do it for you. Do you trust me to do that? That every day I will provide what you need. Skip down to verse 19. Moses said to them, no one is to leave any of it until morning. Why? Because you were only supposed to collect 1 day's worth. No leftovers. I don't even like leftovers anyway, so just no leftovers, right? Don't store it. Don't keep it. Yahweh will provide. Look at 20. But they did not listen to Moses. And some left part of it until morning, and it bred worms and stank. And Moses was angry with them. They gathered it morning by morning, everyone as much as he would eat. But when the sun became hot, it will melt. They stored food. Were they supposed to store food? No. What are they doing? Did they listen to Yahweh? No. Did they obey Yahweh? No. And why? Because they're disobedient people? No. What's the root cause? They don't trust Yahweh. Because if they trusted him, they would have done what he asked, right? Just go back to Abraham, who did the most ridiculous things that he was called to do by Yahweh because he trusted him, right? Look at verse 22. Now on the 6th day they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers for each one. This is now the exception, okay? They're allowed to collect twice as much bread on the 6th day. Why? Because they have a Sabbath on the 7th day. They're not going to collect on the 7th day. When all the leaders of the congregation came and told Moses, then he said to them, this is what Yahweh meant. Tomorrow is a Sabbath observance, a holy Sabbath to Yahweh. Bake what you will bake and boil what you will boil, and all that is left over put aside to be kept until morning. Have some leftovers, okay? So they put it aside until morning, as Moses had ordered, and it did not stink, nor was there a maggot in it. Yahweh obviously at work. Then Moses said, "Eat it today, for today is a Sabbath to Yahweh. Today you will not find it in the field. 6 days you will gather it, but on the seventh day, the Sabbath, there will be none." Pretty clear instructions. I don't think the instructions could have been clearer. Collect 1 day's worth of food for 5 days. Collect 2 days' worth of food on the 6th day. And Saturday, there will be none, and you'll have food for that 7th day. Saturday rolls around. Guess what they do? They go out looking for food on the 7th day. They didn't listen again. God's very, very clear about it. And it just reveals, I want to keep bringing it back to this, it revealed they didn't trust God, because if they trusted God, they would never have gone out on the 7th day. Oh, there you go, 27. Yet it came about on the 7th day that some of the people went out to gather, but they found none. Then Yahweh said to Moses, "How long do you refuse to keep my commandments and my instructions?" How long are you going to refuse to just do the simple things I'm asking you to do? Why can't you follow these simple instructions? Don't you remember, people, that the terms and conditions I gave you in chapter 15? You need to listen to what Yahweh says. You need to do what he says. You need to follow his instructions. You need to do what he says to do, and things will go well for you, right? We covered that last week. Things will go well. I'm trying to give you rest on that 7th day so that you don't have to work. Why are some of you unwilling to take my rest? To trust me enough to not go out to collect food? Why can't you receive what I'm trying to provide for you? And I don't know about you, but I read these stories and I look at them and I'm like, I just look with contempt. I'm like, you guys are morons, right? How daft you are that you cannot follow the simple instructions, the simplest instructions, right? Don't they know God knows what's best for them and wants what's best for them? All they have to do is trust him. And then I wake up in the morning and I look in the mirror and I'm like, uh-oh, right? How many times has God given me very simple instructions? Has said, this is what is best for your life. I will take care of you. I will provide for you. All you need to do is trust me in these things. And I choose my own way. Because choosing his way would have required me to step out in faith, right? Would require me to step out and actually trust him and not trust myself. Ooh, that makes me nervous. How daft am I? I can't even follow simple instructions. Can't I see that God knows what's best for me? Right? Can't I see that he wants what's best for me, that he's doing what's best for me in my life? He's asking me to do a very, very simple thing. He's asking us to do a very, very simple thing. Trust him. Not us. Trust him. The point on your handout, if you want to fill it in, is from the beginning, Israel's disobedience revealed that they didn't fully trust God. From the beginning, Israel's disobedience revealed that they didn't trust God. So that was chapter 16, 17 and 18. Yahweh continues to be faithful to Israel. Israel keeps complaining and acting entitled. And then in chapter 19, Yahweh meets with Moses. And he gives them the first group of very specific covenant requirements, right? This is when he goes up on the mountain. We talked about this last week. And then Moses educates the people on what Yahweh is asking them to do. Okay, it's the first set of these instructions that they're going to receive. And they seem to be very on board right from the start. We saw this last week. All that Yahweh has spoken, we will do, right? They're like, whatever he says, we're on board, we're going to do, we're with it. Then in chapter 20, he gives his very first instruction. Look at it. It says, then God spoke all these words, saying, I am Yahweh your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. Remember, he constantly is reminding them of who he is so that they'll respond correctly, right? Here's the instruction. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself an idol or any likeness of what is in heaven above or on earth beneath or in the water under the earth. You shall not worship them or serve them, for I, Yahweh your God, am a jealous God, inflicting the punishment of the fathers on the children, on the third and fourth generations of those who hate me, but showing favor to thousands, to those who love me and keep my commandments. This is the first in a long list of instructions, of terms and conditions to the contract, right? And he says some pretty simple things. No other gods, right? And no idols. No physical representations of me or any other god. Which, by the way, would be unusual for this time. Most people, the vast majority of people, were considered polytheistic, right? They believed in multiple gods, and it actually makes sense, okay? So if I'm worshiping one God who can help me, because it was usually about worshiping the gods that could help me out, okay? So if I'm worshiping one God who, because I'm a farmer, I'm going to worship the God of the harvest, okay? And that the God of the harvest should help me have a good harvest, right? If I do right by this God, right? But if I'm worshiping one God and one God can help me out, why not worship 3 gods? Why not worship 8 gods? They can really help me out, right? So it would have been very natural for them in their thinking, especially coming out of Egypt and their way of worshiping, that you have Yahweh, and yeah, we worship Yahweh, okay? Because he's the one who brought us out of Egypt, right? But why would we just worship Yahweh? Why not add on these other gods who could also help us out? And Yahweh's like, no. No hedging your bets. That does not work for me. I'm exclusive. I stand alone. No one stands with me. You must be exclusively dedicated to me and nothing else. Which simply returns us back to first principles. How many gods were there at the beginning? One God. There is only one God. How many gods were worshipped from the beginning? One God to be worshipped. And he is the creator God. He is the one who created us for worship. He is the one who created us to be in relationship with him alone. And so he's just calling the people back to first principles, right? There's only one God, the creator of all things, and mankind was made to live in relationship. And secondly, it was a weird thing because they all had idols. All of these gods that they worshiped were all had idols. If you think about it, it's like in their minds they were like, what am I going to do if I don't have an idol in front of me? Like, what am I going to bow down to? The air? What am I going to? Who am I going to speak to? Who am I going to make supplication to? Am I just going to stand out in the middle of nowhere and just make supplication to nothing? No, I need a God carved out of stone that I can focus my worship on, and I can speak to, and maybe I'll even give it a little kiss, which they would do, right? Because now I can interact with this God, which is a hunk of stone, right? It's like no. No idols. No idols because no representations of him, no images of him. Why? Go back to first principles. Does God have images? Yeah. Who are they? Us. God already made the idols. God already made the images of himself, the reflections of himself, right? There's no other images other than us, and our purpose is to image him, right? Reflect him. It's about holiness. It's about differentness. It's about doing things differently than the world, because how has it been going when the world has been in charge of things? Has it been going good? Are we fulfilling our purpose? No, he wants to bring us back to the purpose for which we were created, which is very different, holy, than the rest of the world. Be different. Worship one true God with no idols. Look at how they respond. This is really good. All the words which Yahweh has spoken, we will do. A little bit later, all that Yahweh has spoken, we will do, and we will be obedient. Yes. Finally, we're getting back on track. This is the way it is supposed to be. Let's see how it works out. For the next few chapters, we have Moses going back up on the mountain. He's getting a lot of instructions. But chapter 32 is the first time we see how the people actually respond, not just with their words, but with their actions. This is the very next picture we have of the people. Check this out. Now, when the people saw Moses delayed to come down from the mountain, because he's gone for 40 days, the people assembled around Aaron and said to him, "Come, make us a god who will go before us. For this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what's happened to him. Where's he gone? We don't know." Okay. Which Aaron responds to this, by the way, by actually building them an idol, this big bull, right? He calls the bull Yahweh. What? And they worship it, okay, with sacrifices. What was that first instruction again? No other gods. Why don't you build us a god, Aaron? What? You shall not make for yourself an idol. All right, let's get our earrings out and start making a bull. And of course they responded correctly, right? All the words which Yahweh has spoken, we will do. And then push comes to shove, and what happens? They don't do it. They do exactly what he tells them not to do. I don't know about you, but I look at this and I'm like, they're idiots. They're so dumb. They're just so dumb, right? It's so simple. Who brought you out of the land of Egypt, people? They're like, Moses, who brought us out of the land of Egypt. What? Who brought you out of the land of Egypt? Yahweh brought you out of the land of Egypt, not Moses. What are you talking about, right? Their faith was misplaced in this person who had gone up on the mountain, and they're like, maybe he's going to be gone forever. We don't know what happened to him. Yahweh might be gone forever too, so we need to build an idol to bring Yahweh back into the assembly here. We need to do something about this problem. And I look with contempt and I'm like, you're so dumb. But how many times for me were God's instructions so clear, so simple? How many times did God say to me, I need you to trust in me alone. Stop trusting in the people around you. Stop trusting in your closest relationships. Stop trusting in the stuff you have. Stop trusting in your security in life and how safe you feel in life. Stop trusting in those things. Trust in me alone. And then I start looking for my security in what my bank account looks like. Or I start looking for my significance from Melissa or my kids or my friends. When God seems far and things are not going the way I want them to go, who do I turn to? Who do I rely on? Who do I depend on? Is he still trustworthy in that moment? He is. The question is, do I have the precondition of faith? Do I have the situation going into that moment in which I trust God completely? Because if I trust God completely here, when that moment comes, it's going to be easy to trust him in that moment. Look at verse 7. It says, "Then Yahweh spoke to Moses, 'Go down at once, for your people whom you brought up out of this land of Egypt have behaved corruptly.'" This is how I talk to Melissa when the kids are doing something wrong. Your son did this, right? They have quickly turned aside from the way which I commanded them. They have made for themselves a cast metal calf and have worshipped it and sacrificed to it and said, "This is your God, Israel, who brought you out of the land of Egypt." Then Yahweh said to Moses, "I've seen this people, and behold, they are an obstinate people. So now leave me alone, that my anger may burn against them, and that I may destroy them, and I will make you a great nation." Yahweh is about to destroy the people. He's done with them. Why? They've broken the contract. And for those who break the contract, his blessings don't go to them. In fact, he is under no obligation to hold up his end of the contract, and he's not going to hold up his end of the contract. He's clearly saying, I'm going to wipe them out, and instead of them being, the Israelites, now you're going to have kids, and your kids are going to have kids, and we're going to be the Moabites or something, right? Because now my blessing, my covenant is going to go through you, Moses, because these people obviously can't handle being in contract with me. This is a flood moment, right? This is a Sodom and Gomorrah moment. Like he started over with Noah and he started with Abraham, he's going to start over with Moses. And this is exactly what he said he would do. This should not be confusing to them. I, Yahweh your God, am a jealous God, inflicting the punishment of the fathers on the children and on the third and fourth generations of those who hate me. This is who our God is. This is who he told them who he was. And Israel failed to meet these terms and conditions. The very first one, right? He's like, this is the first principle here. Moses ends up talking Yahweh into not destroying them. He's like, give them another chance, okay? We'll figure this out. Moses does direct a group of Levi's descendants to destroy like 3,000 of the core instigators of this thing. And then Yahweh says this a little bit later. He says, Yahweh said to Moses, "Whoever has sinned against me, I will wipe him out of my book. They're not Israelites. But go now, lead the people where I told you. Behold, my angel shall go before you. Nevertheless, on the day when I will punish them for their sin." Then Yahweh struck the people with a plague because of what they did with the calf which Aaron had made. He struck a lot of them with a plague, which is the consequences of breaking the contract, right? This generation, which was supposed to lead this long and happy and disease-free life, right? We talked about that last week, are now not living that life. Shorter, disease-filled life. And the responsibility is completely theirs, not God's. The point on your handout, if you want to fill it in, is while the Israelites' words spoke of an exclusive commitment to the contract, their actions show a deep level of unfaithfulness and demonstrated that clear instructions are not enough. While the Israelites' words spoke of an exclusive commitment to the contract, their actions show a deep level of unfaithfulness that demonstrated that clear instructions are not enough. I don't know about you, but at times in my life, I've thought, if God could just be clearer on these points, right? I just want more rules, is what I want. I want more things where God's like, no, don't drink coffee every day because that makes you jittery. Okay. Or don't drink a Red Bull because that's going to give you way too much caffeine or whatever, right? But or whatever the thing is, I just want God to just give me what I'm supposed to do every second of my day, every second of every day of my life, and I will follow what you say. But how dumb is that to think that? Because the clearer he is with his instructions, the more disobedient his people were. And why would I expect to be any different than that? So they're going back to the drawing board now. Yahweh's going back to the drawing board. He's like, man, this was a really bad thing that happened, but we're going to kind of start over. God has Moses write down a copy of the covenant with its terms and conditions, a new copy of it, and he renews the contract with the people in chapter 34. And then look at this. Verse 10, it says, "Then God said, 'Behold, I'm going to make a covenant before all your people. I will perform miracles which have not been produced in all the earth, nor among any of the nations. And all the people among who you live will see the working of Yahweh. For it is a fearful thing that I'm going to perform with you. Be sure to comply with what I am commanding you this day. Behold, I'm going to drive out the Amorite from you, the Canaanite, the Hittite, the Perizzite, the Hivite, the Jebusite. Be careful that you do not make a covenant, a contract with the inhabitants of the land into which you are going. No treaties, nothing like that. And it will become a snare, or it will become a snare in your midst. But rather you are to tear down their altars and smash their memorial stones and cut down their Asherim, which is a worshiping place. For you shall not worship any other God, because Yahweh, whose name is jealous, is a jealous God.'" We've heard this. This is who God is, right? When you go into this land, this new land I'm going to give you of Canaan, no contracts, no covenants, no treaties with them, no deals, right? Don't keep any of their gods or their worshiping centers. Tear all that stuff down. And things will go well, right? And if you don't, things are going to go badly for you. Rest of Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy are these long sections of these contractual terms. We talked about that. And at the end of Deuteronomy, Moses is about to die. He's giving kind of his final instructions to the people. And Yahweh gives him a look into the future, a peek into the future of the nation. And look what he says. Verse 15. He says, "And Yahweh appeared in the tent in a pillar of cloud, and the pillar of cloud stood at the entrance of the tent. Yahweh said to Moses, 'Behold, you are about to lie down with your fathers, you're about to die. And this people will arise and play the prostitute with the foreign gods of the land in the midst of which they are going. And they will abandon me and break my covenant that I have made with them.'" They are going to be prostitutes to our relationship. Remember, we talked about this covenant being a contractual relationship, right? Much more like a marriage covenant, a marriage contract, than some sort of like legal contract that you have with your bank or something, right? It's based on a relationship. And so violations of that contract are relational violations. He says they're going to violate our contract, our relational contract. 17, he says, "Then my anger will be kindled against them on that day, and I will abandon them and hide my face from them, and they will be consumed, and many evils and troubles will find them. So they will say on that day, 'It is not because our God is not among us that these evils, is it not because our God is not among us that these evils have found us? But I will assuredly hide my face on that day because of all the evil that they have done, for they have turned away to other gods.'" He's like, this pattern that they already demonstrated, they're going to continue that pattern. The future generations are going to continue that pattern. He was very, very clear, no treaties with them, no taking of their gods, no, destroy all of their worship centers. And I know this is a big surprise to us, but they don't listen. They worship the Canaanite gods. They don't drive all the people from the land. And they do it because they think they know better, right? They think that the way they do things as opposed to the way Yahweh does things is better. Why would you drive all the people out of the land when that's really hard? Right? Like there were some groups in the land that had like chariots and stuff, and those chariots are hard to battle against. And we can just take the land and be comfortable in our part of the land, and we'll push them out to the outskirts of the land, and it'll be fine. We don't need to destroy them completely. Or you know what? We have this group of people that are in our land, and if we drive them out, we're not going to have anyone to like serve us. And we want slaves. I want to be able to relax on my hammock and someone bring me grapes. So let's keep these people around. That makes so much more sense than what Yahweh's asking us to do. Or some of the young guys were like, hey, you know what? As I was battling, I looked over and there's some pretty cute girls over there, right? Like, some of these Canaanite girls are kind of hot, you know? So I think I may want one of them for my wife. Why would I want to destroy them when they're so pretty? So they marry them. Is that what Yahweh said to do? No. Drive them out. But they think they know better. Isn't that us, though? Don't we tend to think we know better? Like, God, yeah, I know this is what you're asking me to do, but that seems hard. Or that just doesn't seem like the right way to do that. Like, I know some better ways to do that particular thing. They were wrong then, and we're wrong now. So this is what happens. I'm just going to summarize because we are out of time, and I want to honor your time. Right after this, we get the book of Judges. The book of Judges is a simple story, extremely repetitive, but it's basically the same story told over and 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 over again. And the story goes a little bit like this. The people are evil. They do evil in the sight of Yahweh. They break the covenant contract. Yahweh's response is to back away from the contract and let the bad things that happen to people all the time happen to their people. And so bad things happen to them. They don't like that bad things are happening to them. So they go to Yahweh and they go, help. We don't like that bad things are happening to us. And Yahweh destroys them. No, he doesn't destroy them. Like I would destroy them. I'm like, you guys are idiots. But he is gracious to them. And he sends them what we call a judge, basically just a leader, to come in and deal with the situation. And they do. Things are good again. And then their kids forget all about Yahweh, do things their own way. They do evil in the sight of Yahweh. Bad things happen. They cry out to Yahweh. Yahweh sends a leader to help them. Things get fixed. Everyone's happy. And then their kids do evil in the sight of Yahweh. Do you see how this works? Like over and over and over and over and over and over again. And you have this happening. I have a long list of judges here. I mean, it just happens over and over and over and over again for like 300 years. They're just morons. Like, don't you get it? Things go well when you're trusting Yahweh. And things go badly when you're not trusting Yahweh. It's pretty simple. But they keep returning to unfaithfulness. When I think about these people, the word that comes to my mind is infidelity, right? Which we usually associate in marriage, right? To someone who has infidelity is usually a marital thing, right? But it carries the idea of kind of the opposite of fidelity, right? These people lacked fidelity to Yahweh. Fidelity, some synonyms to fidelity is loyalty. They had none. You read Judges, there's no loyalty there. Obedience, iffy at best, right? Devotion. When it suited them, sure. Dependability. Mm-mm. Reliability. Mm-mm. Constancy. They're about as inconsistent as you get, right? Monogamy. Not for any period of time. I don't know about you, but when I hear stories of someone cheating on their spouse, like I don't like that story. Anybody like that story? I don't like that story. at all. Sometimes that ends a marriage. Sometimes there's reconciliation there. But I don't like that story at all. I also really don't like the story of the guy who commits infidelity and then decides to run away with that person, right? Like, I'm just going to leave, and I'm just going to be with that other person, and I'm going to break our marriage covenant, and I'm just going to be with that other person. I don't like that story at all. Anybody like that story? I like that story less than I like the story of the single moment of infidelity. I don't like that story at all. But I can tell you there's a story I like worse than any of those stories. It's the guy who commits infidelity and then comes crawling back and says, please, 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 take me back. While he's still looking for the next woman, right? And keeps coming back, please, please, please take me back. And then he does it again. And no, please, please, please take me back. And then he does it again. Anybody like that story? I hate that story. Hate it. This is Israel's story. This is who they are. They are the one who cheats and comes back and cheats and comes back and cheats and comes back and cheats and comes back. I hate this story. I want to condemn these people. But then I look at my own life and I think, how many times have I cheated on my God? He's made it very, very simple and easy. Just trust me. And I'm like, I don't think so. Not today. And I come back crawling to him and going, yeah, I know, that was a mess, what just happened there. I don't know why I did that. Sorry. I love you. Take me back. And he's faithful to take me back every moment. Every time he's faithful to take me back. And I get down the road a little bit, and there's something else that makes me feel really nervous, and I'm like, I just need to trust in myself in this moment, and I cheat on him again. This is us. This is our story, people. This is their story, but it's our story, right? We can relate to this. We know this is us. The point of your handout is this. Israel thought, that doesn't make any sense. Israel thought, there shouldn't be an apostrophe S there, they knew better than their God, and it resulted in disobedience while conquering the land. Israel knew they knew better than their God, and it resulted in disobedience while conquering the land. I flipped it around. That is correct. Does your handout make sense? Can you fill in the blanks? Right. I remember thinking this doesn't make sense, so I reworded it. Okay. Everybody got the blanks though, right? Now, I want you to think about this. Just look at those points on your handout. Can we swap our name in there? Right? Can I say that at times I thought I knew better and it resulted in disobedience? Again, this is a sad story, and it's a story I don't like to think about. I don't like it. And I think the reason I don't like it is I see myself in it. My lack of consistency. How many times have I considered my way better than his way? My plan better than his plan? And how dumb am I to do that? When he's simply asking me to trust him, that he knows what's best, not me. That he loves me better than I could love myself. And that he's able and he's willing to do what's best in my life. Just trust, trust, trust. The quote on the bottom of your handout, I think I have it up here if this is updated correctly. It is. It's by a guy named Andrew Murray. He's a 19th century missionary. He was a Scottish missionary who went to South Africa. And I just like this quote that he has that I find to be very true. God is ready to assume full responsibility for the life wholly yielded to him. I don't even have to take responsibility for myself. I just have to take responsibility for entrusting myself to the one who is willing to take responsibility for every aspect of my life. That's what he's calling me to do. That's what he's calling you to do. That's what he's calling us as a church to do. Just trust him. Let me pray for us. Lord, we do trust you. We want to trust you. We want to trust you deeper and fuller, and we want to live lives that just demonstrate every day that we do trust you. And that will include obedience. That will include our lives being different than what they are when we take our lives in our own hands, which is definitely not the way to go. And so many of us have gone down roads that are just destructive for us and destructive for other people in our lives. And God, we want to return to you. We don't like that story of the unfaithful person, the unfaithful spouse, but we love the story of your grace and your forgiveness. And that exists, and we want to embrace that, and we want to follow that. We want to live that. But more than anything, we want to trust you in deeper and deeper ways so that we see some consistency out of our lives, that we see some fidelity out of our lives, that we see some loyalty out of us. And we know, we're convinced, we should be convinced, if we're not convinced us, that we can't do that on our own. Your Spirit is the only thing that can work that out in our lives. And so we ask that your Spirit do that. Ask that your Spirit work in our lives. That we would be those who rely completely on you, wholly dependent on you. Pray this all in your name.